The Iran war's impact on Brazil, Colombia's new president and fragile finances, toil and trouble, more Trump trade turmoil. Welcome to Weekend Sentinel from LatinAmericaRiskSentinel.com. Thanks for being with me today. Latin America Risk Sentinel helps you turn risk into opportunity. I'm Win Trevette II, your Latin America regional specialist. Be sure to start your day with our complimentary email Morning Latim Signal for the one big story you can't afford to miss happening in the region. Simply visit bit.ly/daily and the letter B. This is your weekend readout before Monday morning. Every Saturday, you and I review 3 important developments in Latin America that you need to know about. So, let's get started. The Iran War and Brazil. The Iran War exposed a more fragmented world where U.S. power still matters but no longer organizes every decision. Countries are picking and choosing, relying on Washington where it helps, hedging with China where it pays, and protecting their own energy and security interests first. For Brazil, that is familiar terrain. Brasilia wants strategic autonomy, but the war shows the cost of autonomy in a world where fuel, shipping, defense, and diplomacy are harder to separate. Brazil is not a clean winner from higher oil prices. It benefits from crude strength through Petrobras, offshore production, and export revenue, but its economy remains vulnerable to diesel shocks. Diesel runs Brazilian trucking, agribusiness, mining, construction, and food distribution. When Gulf or Red Sea instability lifts refined fuel costs, Brazil's global posture becomes a domestic business risk issue. So Brazil gains some leverage as a crude producer, but its diesel dependence makes fuel volatility a direct operating cost for logistics and agribusiness. Track Petrobras pricing, diesel import policy, subsidy decisions, and Brazil's diplomatic language on Iran, BRICS, and maritime choke points. Watch for whether Brazil turns strategic autonomy into energy resilience or remains a crude exporter with a refined fuel weakness that global conflict can quickly expose. Moving on to Colombia, Colombia's new president and fragile finances. Controversial lawyer, businessman, dual Colombian U.S. citizen, and holder of an Italian passport, Abelardo de la Espriella, was elected as the country's next president and will take office on August 7th. Colombia has opened a political reset with this election, but the first constraint is financial capacity, not campaign narrative. De la Espriella, also known as El Tigre, the tiger, will need to tame the country's finances, foster greater security in the streets, and work with a divided Congress, which raises implementation risk for his campaign agenda. The impact? More private sector openness and a likely U.S. Colombia reset, but coalition building becomes the delivery mechanism. The financial dilemma is immediate. Corfi Colombiana says the fiscal deficit exceeds 6% of GDP. Debt is near 60%, and the 2026 TES, those are the local bonds, those coupons are around 10.4%. The high spending of current Presidente Gustavo Petro has left Colombia's finances heavily strained. De la Espriella faces a fragmented Congress without a solid power bloc because in the elections last March, the leftist Pacto Histórico, the party outgoing of Petra, emerged as the largest force in the Senate, but no single party retained a majority in either house. For the key moves, track the finance minister, the first budget, and TES issuance. before treating the political reset as an investment reset. Watch for if security policy, U.S. recertification, and investment reform reinforce one another. Colombia can regain confidence. If Congress stalls fiscal adjustment, the reset becomes an expectations trade. And finally, toil and trouble, more Trump trade turmoil. Washington refused to renew the U.S. Mexico Canada trade agreement in its current form, the USMCA, leaving the impact alive but moving into annual reviews and a 10-year countdown. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer said the agreement was not renewed in its current form, while negotiations with Mexico are expected to focus partly on stricter North American rules of origin on the trade accord's 6-year anniversary. The impact? This weakens one of North America's core planning assumptions: predictable rules for nearshoring and cross border capital spending. For Latin America, uncertainty in U.S. Mexico trade may redirect marginal investment elsewhere, while raising compliance and sourcing friction for firms using Mexico as a U.S. gateway. Key moves: track rules of origin demands, possible bilateral protocols, and corporate capital expenditure pauses across integrated supply lines. While there is no expectation of immediate collapse of trade talks, the US, Canada, and Mexico have now entered a stage of permanent renegotiation, where trade access remains legally active but politically conditional. Businesses thrive on predictability, but from tariffs to breaking long standing trade agreements like the USMCA during the Trump era, the seemingly inconsistent signals from Washington have raised the risk factor with U.S. trade partners. But you can count on Latin America Risk Sentinel to help you navigate these murky economic times. Thank you for being with me today. Latin America Risk Sentinel at LatinAmericaRiskSentinel.com helps you turn risk into opportunity. Be sure to start your day with our complimentary email, Morning Latim Signal, for the one big story you can't afford to miss. Learn not just what happened, but what to watch next. Simply visit bit.ly/daily and the letter B. I'm Win Trevez II, your Latin America Regional Specialist.